Hello and welcome to Unwatchables. I am Marc Dottavio.
And I'm Seth Troyer.
And today we welcome back critic, author, and podcaster Jason Bailey for two dark, controversial, and perhaps timely films by the late director Joel Schumacher. 1993's Michael Douglas starring Falling Down, maybe the angry white man vigilante thriller. It's often accused of fostering violent, racially charged grievance. We will see how that holds up today. As well as 1999's bleak psychological thriller 8mm, which answers the question, what if Seven starred Nicolas Cage and was directed by the guy behind Batman and Robin?
That's right. We're not doing Batman and Robin. Not Batman Forever. This ain't your grandma's Joel Schumacher podcast.
Not this time, at least. Maybe someday.
No DC Cap. No The Incredible Shrinking Woman.
Oh, I
no,
want to
but
see
man,
that.
what a deep list he has, though, we could go into for this podcast. But again, here to help us is Jason Bailey. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, Rolling Stone, Vulture, The Village Voice, Vanity Fair, The Atlantic, pretty much everywhere else. He has written books about Pulp Fiction, Richard Pryor, Woody Allen, and 70s detective pictures. Last time he was on, we talked about Fun City Cinema, New York City, and the movies that made it. And today we will ask him about Gandolfini, Jim, Tony, and the Life of a Legend, which is out now. Jason, I haven't even mentioned your Guide for the Film Fanatic podcast. You're a very busy guy. Is there another podcast besides that?
No, that is
Okay.
the current we were doing a very good year we did that for 2 years.
Right.
We did 100 episodes and basically ran out of very good years. So instead of doing kind of good years, we pivoted to this new show, which is, yes, Guide for the Film Fanatic. Each week a guest picks one of the 1,600 plus must-see movies from Danny Perry's 1986 book, and we spend an hour talking about that. And it's been a lot of fun so far. We're not very far in. We just put episode 7 up earlier this week. So it's a fairly new endeavor, but we're having a good time with it.
All right, awesome. And can you hold up that book again? Because this is a beautiful cover.
I will. Thank you. And you have added a YouTube version of the show since the last time I was on. So I did want to make sure I brought my props that I had.
And if you're not watching that, you need to
swag.
look it up on Google, this book, because it does the cutest little picture of Mr. Soprano.
Could not be happier with the cover they put together for this. I'll brag on it because I had nothing to do with it. Like, the design team over at Abrams Press did a fantastic job. They found this photo that my friend Charles Bromesco called fun, flirty Jimmy Gandolfini, which I think is nice.
Who, me?
And yeah, I mean, it was really important. You know, this is the same publisher, Abrams Press, has put out Sopranos books. They put out the Sopranos Sessions, which is sort of the definitive Sopranos book. And that, of course, has the Gandolfini as Tony, suit, cigar, tough guy thing. And so we thought it was very important to have a photo, to have a cover for this that was not Tony Soprano, because the book is not just about Tony Soprano.
Right. And so I guess my first question is, what drew you to this particular person and topic and why you chose that for a book? But also, is that more of like, a just overall biography or more of a critical look at his movies and TV work, or all of the above?
I try to kind of do both, but it is much more of a biography of a semi-traditional top to bottom entire life biography, which frankly, that was my initial sort of draw, was when Abrams reached out to me about the idea of doing a straight up biography. I was interested because I hadn't done that before. You mentioned that the Tarantino book, the Woody Allen book, and really even the Richard Pryor book are more sort of critical analysis, looking at filmographies, looking at particular pieces of work, none of them trying to do the sort of cradle to grave thing. I thought it would be a challenge because I read a lot of entertainment biographies. I like a lot of entertainment biographies, but I find the genuinely great ones are kind of few and far between. I think I feel that it's actually fairly easy to put together an adequate celebrity biography, if you know what I mean. Like, these lives are inherently dramatic and interesting. We're reading the book because this is a person we're interested in. If you get all of your facts right, you talk to some people, and you kind of put everything in the correct order, then it'll be readable and probably enjoyable. And I've read a lot of biographies like that. I wanted to find a way to put across, to some extent, who this guy was. The great biographies that I've read, things like Mark Harris's book on Mike Nichols, Peter Goralnik's books on Elvis, those sorts of things are not just everything that happened to someone, but really leave you with a sense of who they are. And I thought that would be an interesting challenge.
Is there also maybe kind of a New York connection? Although I guess he's technically a New Jersey guy.
He's a Jersey guy. You know, it's a tri-state thing, but certainly, you know, the area is still steeped in love for him and for The Sopranos specifically. So yeah, that's certainly, it doesn't feel entirely removed from the work I've done before.
Yeah, and I know the last time we had you on, we talked about William Friedkin's Cruising and Abel Ferrara's Bad Lieutenant, which are you know, very New York movies.
Very
and
much.
This time we were kind of looking through. I was kind of looking through James Gandolfini's filmography to see, like, is there anything that unwatchable in there? And it was kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, most people he's probably always going to be mostly associated with The Sopranos, but he does have a very, you know, rich and deep filmography that got to show off more sides of him. And 8mm was the one that we came across as the kind of the connection, which we can get into more once we actually get to that film.
It wound up being perfect for the podcast.
Yeah.
Happened to be. And also, yeah, like Joel Schumacher with Falling Down. Here we are.
Yeah, it was way too tempting to finally throw in Falling Down, because there's so much to talk about with that movie.
Stunned that you guys hadn't done that one yet. So I'm glad I was here for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the connection is Joel Schumacher, who I guess we'll kind of pivot to as the topic here of this podcast. You know, not a director you really hear talked about a whole lot. He died in 2020. He has a, you know, pretty big filmography with very popular, very well-known movies in it. And he basically, two of his earliest films, St. Elmo's Fire from 1985 and The Lost Boys, were just two back-to-back big hits and very, very 80s movies. They are the most just big hair, gated drums, neon lighting, Corey
synthesizers.
Feldman. Yes. And his filmography since then, you look through it, you know, it's a lot of mediocre movies that made a lot of money, which again, that's all subjective. Sure. But it's kind of scattered. There's a couple of John Grisham adaptations, like The Client, some, you know, beloved thrillers like Flatliners and Phone Booth, and the Jim Carrey horror film Number 23.
Oh God!
Which you got another one to do someday.
Home invasion movie, Trespass. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's some big properties in there, like the Phantom of the Opera musical, and of course, the most beloved of all the Batman films, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Now, here's the thing. Let's just get this out of the way. I will go to the mat for Batman Forever. In fact, when he passed, I was asked to write an appreciation of Batman Forever because I had tweeted something nice about it after he passed. I think Batman Forever, first of all, saved that franchise, because remember, Batman Returns was seen as a big disappointment. Got a lot of bad reviews. The consensus, the tide has only turned on that over the past, I would say, like 5 or 10 years. He was seen as coming in and saving that franchise because people liked Batman Forever. It made a whole lot of money and it got good enough reviews. And honestly, I think there's fun stuff in it. I think Kilmer's pretty great. I think Nicole Kidman is a fabulous Batman heroine. I think Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones, however they got along on set, seem to they come across as having a good time on screen. I don't hate Batman Forever. I have no such defenses for Batman and Robin. That's just a big old piece of shit.
It gets to be too much by then. Yeah. I mean, once you lock into that, it's this Adam West, silly, campy Batman on purpose.
Absolutely.
On purpose, you know, like you can just be along for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It gets grating after a while, but I have a blast when I watch that. Even nostalgia aside, I mean, my age group, like that was my introduction to Schumacher and Batman. I think, like, I was just a kid when those came out, and that was it. That was the thing for me.
Yeah, Batman Forever was a big movie for me growing up. Although these days I kind of have, and I'm not going to get us way off into the weeds with this here, because I have kind of an opposite opinion. Actually, when I went back and revisited those movies, I think that maybe Batman and Robin doesn't get enough credit for the campy
Interesting.
Not all of it, definitely. Anything it's trying to do with the Alicia Silverstone and the more dramatic side, that's all dead in the water. But I think the silliness gets to be somewhere a little bit enjoyable in there in a way that Batman Forever was a little rougher for me the last time that I watched it. But I guess it depends whether, you want the villains to be yelling or you enjoy maybe the puns and the Arnold Schwarzenegger accent more.
Terrible. But, that stuff is terrible. But I do think
horrible choices.
Yes, I do think Clooney is actually a very good Batman.
Sure, yeah.
Who just got cast in the wrong damn Batman movie. But I think he's one of the few who really sort of gets the dichotomy between Bruce Wayne and Batman and is interesting as both of them, if that makes any sense.
Sure, yeah. And so I guess to kind of narrow it down here, and looking through his filmography, honestly, like I did rewatch The Lost Boys last Halloween, and that's probably, I definitely don't think it like totally works. There's a lot of different things tonally going on in that, but it is kind of fun. I don't know. It might be the one that I think holds up the most of his films that I've seen. But I can't imagine. It doesn't seem like there's anything else in his filmography that was like as kind of polarizing as Falling Down, or as I don't know. It was controversial at the time. I think now it probably has an even crazier reputation. And I mean, I kind of said it a lot in our introduction here. This is the angry white man archetype, which has so much resonance now that you could imagine. And I mean, let's just dive right in, because this is a crazy movie. I'm not even sure. I guess you'd call it a thriller,
psychological thriller, urban thriller,
comedy.
I
feel like it's trying to be funny, right?
Yes, no, there are I think so. Okay. There are definite dark comedy pieces to it. And I will say, I remember this as someone who was old enough to remember when this movie came out. The dark comedy, I mean, pity the poor marketing department that had to figure out how to sell this movie. I remember it being, if I recall correctly, I remember it being a spring release. So this was, they did not see this as like a potentially big summer hit, certainly, or even a fall prestige picture. It's sort of got a weird summer release. And the trailers, at least the initial trailer, was very much centered on the fast food scene. Pitching it as more of a social satire, black comedy. And that's on this rewatch, and I don't think I'd seen this movie since like VHS after it was first released. The thing that was most striking to me about it was just how wildly tonally inconsistent it is. That it feels that, and I don't know if this was present in the original screenplay, if this was rewrites, because I know there were some sort of hot screenwriters who are not listed as screenwriters in it. Like, I think it's producers or something.
That's exactly what Marc and I were talking about.
Yeah. What are their names? Weingrod and Harris, who were like the guys who wrote Twins. You know what I mean? They're involved in this in some way. So, or I don't know if this was Schumacher's input or what, but it feels to me, watching it now, that I feel like probably that original script was sort of dark, grim, urban thriller all the way through. and someone at some point said, we got to lighten this up. We got to put in some comic scenes, or we got to pitch this as a dark comedy, or vice versa. Maybe the script was this sort of social satire thing, and in the translation, it was certain pieces of it were taken more seriously. But that's what's sort of jarring about it when you're watching it, is that there are scenes that, like the McDonald's scene, like the golf course scene, that are clearly meant to be funny, but they're jutting up alongside these really kind of serious and disturbing scenes. And Schumacher, who I'm not here to spend an hour slamming, but who had gifts as a filmmaker, but graceful tonal shifts are not really part of his consistent toolbox in my observation. So that was what really struck me about it when I was watching it this time, was just how often it asks the audience to shift gears with it, but it's really kind of grinding from one gear to the next.
I totally agree. This feels like a doctored, I don't know, meddled with Taxi Driver or something like that. Like it was because it kind of has me at the beginning, like this whole, it's just this journey starting with this guy. He's in traffic and everybody hates traffic, and it's kind of a beautiful scene, and like emphasizing all the parts of being in a traffic jam, that are those horrible things, and he just gets out and he can't take it anymore. He can't
take the Garfield toys in the windows anymore.
I know, that was,
and from there it does feel like there was an original intent, a script that I could imagine people that go to bat for this movie as being this like lost classic, is that it is this like metaphor for like Michael Douglas is America, right? And when he goes to smash up and get in an argument over how the price of Coke has gone up, and fights with a Korean man, at his store and stuff in that initial encounter, it's definitely, you can read all sorts of things into it about American politics and like coming into your country and like beating up your store and being like, well, like I bought the Coke at the end, though, didn't I? I'm supporting you. And
I mean,
but it totally loses it later on. It totally loses all of that steam of being a metaphor, and then it just becomes just a real guy in this situation, and it really unravels from there for me. No, I mean, he's Schumacher is also not subtle about his metaphors. Like, I did make note of the fact that when the fight with the Korean bodega guy gets physical, like they literally like knock a jar of American flags on the floor, and he gives that like a big close up as like the jar of flags smashes all over the place. And I was like, this is not your most finessed moment here, Joel Schumacher.
Yeah, and that scene itself, I think, is a good thing. Just within a single scene, everything clashing together early on, because you have this uncomfortable element where he's yelling at him about coming to our country and not learning our language, and how much money our country has given to yours. And then he goes on to this one of what seems to be many like kind of stand-up bits of observational humor that I can only imagine, where they kept shoehorning into the script as they went. Yeah, especially like in the fast food scene, he's like, since when did we call everyone by their first names? What is this, an AA meeting? And he has all these little like kind of lame, hacky things that you would hear from like a Dennis Leary bit.
It's like Dennis Leary. It's like JV George Carlin stuff. Yeah, definitely. The golf course scene especially made me think of George Carlin, because he had a really great golf course bit that sequence sort of pales in comparison to. And then, of course, the other thing that's so striking about it early on, is that from the very beginning, he seems especially annoyed by people of color. That he, like, his first, like even in the traffic jam, like the people around him who seem most irritating are like, Black and Latina kids and so forth. He goes in, and the first big confrontation is with this Korean bodega guy, just rampant, xenophobia, right-wing talking points right off the top. Then he has the encounter with like, the Hispanic gang. I had a weird sort of sense of relief when he finally lashed out at a white guy. I was like, okay, this is not going to be like a complete clan meeting here. Although I will, this jumped out at me. I just last weekend took a friend to see Do the Right Thing for the very first time. He had never seen it, and we got to go to a theatrical screening in LA. And this jumped out at me. There's a wonderful circularity. Steve Park played a Korean bodega owner in Do the Right Thing.
Whoa.
And in this, he plays the cop who brings the Korean bodega guy to Robert Duvall and sort of serves as the intermediary in that scene.
And kind of admonishes him for mixing up Japanese and Korean people, which is
correct.
That's an indication here that I imagine the defenders of this film would point to as, see, it is being aware of these things. It's being critical of Michael Douglas. And I think that's a lot of people kind of bring it down to this dichotomy of, is this film indulging the fantasy of violently acting out against these petty frustrations, or is it critiquing it and implicating us? And I wish the movie had that kind of control that it felt like it was actually accomplishing that. It feels like maybe it wants to do both of those. It also wants to have its cheer moments. It wants to be cathartic. But then it kind of, to protect its ass, it's throwing in all this stuff about Michael Douglas maybe being deranged. And what does it all add up to? It's a giant mess, in my opinion.
No, that really, in the sort of second half, which, as Seth noted, is when the wheels kind of fall off the wagon. You know, the note that I wrote when I was rewatching it the other night was, there's just so much good stuff, but Jesus Christ, this is really starting to feel like the Joe Rogan movie experience. Like, by the time it got to the bit with the road construction, you know what I mean? It was just like, yeah, these are all just, like you said, just sort of hacky stand-up rants, inconveniences of modern life, and consistently trying and not really succeeding in threading this very fine needle of, do we recognize that he's a monster, or do we cheer him on? Do we like what he's doing, or are we repulsed by what he's doing? And this is where this movie gets hard to talk about, because in so many ways, it's not, you can so go the wrong direction with that, where you have like a thesis about this person, and every single story beat, every line of dialogue is going to sort of hammer home that thesis. You know, this idea that I think starts coming up when you start talking about, since you mentioned Taxi Driver, when you start talking about Scorsese movies, this controversy. I remember when Wolf of Wall Street came out, and it's like, does representation equal approval? So I'm sure that the filmmakers felt that they were doing the sort of more mature, thought-provoking thing by being ambiguous, by not taking a stand about, you know, is this a good or a bad character? But it just comes off in the viewing as being wishy-washy. It comes off like this is a film that does not, for all of the points of view it's spouting for 115 minutes, it doesn't actually have a perspective about this character, or at least not one that comes across.
I mean, where it lands for me, and I don't know what the intention winds up being, because I think it is lost in the storm of it. I think so. There's two threads, and it's Michael Douglas's lone wolf, like I can't take it anymore character, and the other thread is Robert Duvall, as like the police guy who's like, I should, like, most generic thing. He's like, I got
last day on the job, buddy.
On the job, like, I never heard that one before. But even his arcs seem to be about sympathizing with these talking points. Like even in there is like, he's got the crazy wife, you know, like, oh, she's always nagging, and she just like can't handle the violence and can't handle me being a cop and everything. And you know where that arc goes? It doesn't end anywhere ambiguous. It ends with him being like, I'm going to be a cop now. Fuck that bitch. I'm going to do whatever I want. You know, which I think there's a lot of arcs like that are even more offensive, like with racial stuff. And like we still just end on sympathizing with these two white guys that are at the center here. And whatever they thought kind of just is washed away in the end. I don't know. There's just like, hey, don't you hate construction? And that's it. And have like hidden anger or not so hidden anger about minorities. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah. What really rubbed me the wrong way when I was watching it, with regards to that, which is a really excellent point, is that in a strange way, in the third act, when we're really getting like a clear and seemingly critical picture of who the Michael Douglas character is, when we've got the stuff like where he's watching the home video and we're seeing him like lashing out at his wife and kid on this video, and it starts to feel like it's cohering into something resembling a perspective, we then almost immediately go into this thing with Duvall on the phone with his wife, where that is played as like a cheer moment. But what we're seeing is him being the exact same kind of monster that just in the previous scene we were supposed to be tisk-tisking about Michael Douglas turning out to be. And it's like, okay, where are we supposed to land on any of this stuff, you know? And then right after that, there's the thing with Duvall punching the other cop. And so in a strange way, it's almost like
cake,
into a giant cake,
the comic register of
so
this
hack,
movie.
so hack. So the fact that like in the midst of the sort of reckoning with who this Michael Douglas character is, we have these two separate moments of Duvall being indistinguishably asshole-ish to people in his sphere. So like where are we actually landing on any of this stuff?
And there's another really weird moment where the cops keep returning to talk to Michael Douglas's ex-wife, who's afraid of him, and trying to figure out why she has a restraining order against him. And they keep trying to ask, like, so did he hit you? And there's a lot of wishy-washy, well, he could, I think.
And then we keep cutting to the cop,
like the movie not
like
being
we're supposed
committal.
to be like, yeah, I don't know why she has a restraining order.
It also, is this just another injustice against him?
Right.
It just keeps, instead of complicating things, it keeps like confusing them.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Schumacher has a great taste for comedy. If you look through his filmography, it's not something, his sledgehammer approach to everything, like the fast food scene or the country club scene. There's a joke in this movie where the guy, the angry country club member, is smacking golf balls at him and yells 4, to which Michael Douglas replies 5 and shoots a bazooka at him. So that's like trying to manage that tone along with this psychological portrait just doesn't work.
Right.
And also, I don't know, even if you did think all of that stuff worked or there was some sort of defensible ideology or portrait behind this movie, just structurally, it feels like the whole order of the day is just like filling time and padding this with long, repetitive phone conversations between different people. Kind of like whoever wrote this was just kept throwing in stuff he's seen from other movies to surround the big set pieces with Michael Douglas, whether it's, the cop stuff or this long visit with his mother, which reveals like nothing. It seems like inept to me, like in a really over the top way. The amount of that I actually started to feel tedious to me felt surprising with all the crazy stuff going on.
I mean, I agree with Bailey in saying that it really feels like a script that just got passed around and like, you try some stuff, you throw some stuff in there.
Well,
yeah.
And I don't want to cast any aspersions because this is pure conjecture, but that also the kind of softening that you're talking about, Marc, also feels like the kind of thing that might have happened when a big star like Michael Douglas comes on. I'm not, this is certainly not a man who had a problem playing villains.
But back to Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street, it's supposed to still have this. Now it has to be like, you still have to like him though. Like you still have to like Leo in Wolf of Wall Street. And now that Michael Douglas is here, we still have to like Michael Douglas. He's the man right now. Right?
So do we have to muddy the notion that, well, maybe he hits his wife? Well, maybe he's okay playing, a sort of, racist God's angry man type, but he doesn't want to be a wife beater. I don't know. That could be the case. I will say, in the movie's defense, that I really like this Michael Douglas performance. Like, I think he is fully committed. First of all, to making himself look really unappealing. Like, the thing to keep in mind is this was right in the middle of his sex symbol era. Like, this came out the year between Basic Instinct and Disclosure, where in both of those movies, the premise is that, like, Michael Douglas is so hot that no woman can resist him. So the fact that he does this thing, with this terrible haircut and these ugly glasses, and is really willing to sort of physically make himself over for the character, I think is really admirable. That said, Rachel Tickerton describes him as late 30s, and like, he was almost 50 when he made this movie. And I as someone who was almost 50, he does not look like he's in his late 30s in this particular film.
I'm totally with you. I don't want to leave the podcast without saying that I do think that Michael Douglas is not the problem at all here.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised at how he embodies this character, as much as it is a character that gets away with being, not as implicated as he should be, and all this stuff, and everybody else is fucking up around him, not him.
Yeah, well, and I like what Robert Duvall is doing with the sort of heavy qualifier of, at this point in his career, this is the kind of thing Robert Duvall could do in his sleep. Like, this is not a role that challenges him in any way, but he's always credible. I totally believe him in every single scene. And the line reading of "fuck you, Captain Yardley, fuck you very much" is like an all-timer. Like, that's a really, really nice moment for him.
Yeah, he wasn't going to mess up a line like that.
No.
And he also has one of those great cop names that it's there so that every character is constantly going, "Pendergrast. Oh, that's you, Pendergrast. Listen here, Pendergrast."
It's a great cop name. Yes. Yes. 100%. 100%. And I think Rachel Tickerton is good. I always like her in things. And honestly, Tuesday Weld, like, that is the most thankless, literally phone it in kind of role. But maybe I'm just sort of carrying over, leftover empathy from Thief or something. But
I just like her. Yeah,
I just like her, and I was glad to see her. I'm always glad to see her in things.
So, like, where I at least wind up landing is, like, still asking myself, like, what did I want this to do? Which I do think, like, in Trump America is like, okay, like, what have we learned? It is pretty simple what this movie probably needed to do, which was like, okay, yes, the problem is that this is displaying Michael Douglas's character is displaying, like, he is clinging. He's like the white male clinging to something that doesn't exist, obviously, around him. Like, there is no white America around this guy. It is all multiracial, and so many things that don't involve him, and he does not have control over them. And, like, all it really needed to do was the opposite of what happens with Robert Duvall, which is, like, he doesn't double down and go back and then say, as much as that line was funny, say "fuck you" and punches his boss, right?
Right.
Like, it is to soften. The lesson would be to soften and let some of the world in, and not be this big mountain of a man that is going to stick to his guns at any cost,
right.
And that's what both threads fail to do in the end.
Definitely. And really, especially in that last scene where they do come face to face, it really does, sort of exemplify where the movie comes up short. This idea that we've discussed of them trying to sort of have their cake and eat it too with this character, and where that scene is trying to position him both as, a tragic figure, a man out of time, a man lost to the ages, and this great truth teller, who typifies a sort of lost dream of America. And, they needed to pick a lane for the movie. They just did. I do think, what you're saying about the phenomenon that it was capturing, which was certainly present in the culture at that time. You know, I think we talk about Seinfeld, Carlin, Leary. I think sort of the other voice that we don't want to acknowledge, but that is a big part of the voice of that character, is Rush Limbaugh. Like that, you know, this is
my grandpa's nodding to this whole movie.
Yeah. Like this, you know, Clinton was elected in 92, and the election of Clinton was very much when sort of Rush Limbaugh was at the height of his powers and his media ubiquity. I think this is around when they even tried to give him a fucking TV show. Grand idea. And the ideas that he's mouthpiecing are very much of a piece with that strain of social commentary, which did sort of, you know, grow and fester and curdle into Trump's America. My friend April Wolf wrote a really fantastic piece about this movie. I want to say during the first Trump administration that ran on LA Weekly, which is a publication that is now gone into the wrong hands, but I'm pretty sure it's still out there. You can Google that and find really thoughtful, really insightful analysis looking at this period piece through a contemporary lens and sort of what it's telling us about the raging, angry, left behind white man.
And apparently the LA riots like actually caused delays in filming during this, which
I forgot about that. Yeah,
that just puts you right into where this was coming from, and this charged atmosphere when it finally would have been released was too.
Yeah. And the best moments in it, especially those early moments, I feel like capture that tension, bottle that tension, use that in ways that are so compelling that the movie kind of doesn't seem to know what to do with them.
Yeah, and that last scene, I think a lot of people will point to that final confrontation with Robert Duvall and that line where he says, "I'm the bad guy."
Right.
As, you know, definitely people who are kind of taking that side of what the movie is doing or arguing that it does work would point to that moment. But it did strike me that like immediately after that, like his next lines are already kind of reeling that back with, "I did everything that they told me to." Which again is like, now he's the victim for playing the game and for being promised all these things that he feels entitled to that he's not getting. And I think another big problem with that is that the movie itself, the city LA in this movie, is full of actual outrageous racial caricatures. So it's kind of hard to point a finger back at him when he actually is running into Hispanic gangbangers who open fire with a machine gun into civilians around him. Like, there's not really a lot of room for gray area when there's people like that in this movie.
And the very final, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and that element that you're talking about is also, again, why you have to decide if this is a serious social commentary or a black comedy / social satire. Because if you're doing black comedy, if you're doing satire, you can get away with those because these are not realistic types. These are sort of stand-ins, and you can get away with that. But if you're trying to take this character seriously, if you're trying to make a serious statement about the state of America circa 1993, then you have to fill it with characters with a great deal more nuance than that.
Oh, yeah. And it's like the final scene itself just seems to let him off the hook with that line, I'm the bad guy and everything. It still feels like somehow, like, again, I don't think it's intentional, but the way they kind of got tangled up is that it feels like they linger on that TV and it's showing him like smiling with his family and stuff, but like we know that like in the next scene on that home video, the problem was always him. It was never like well, but that doesn't seem like what is being addressed, that the problem was always him. He was always just like a fucking control freak and he has issues and stuff like that. It still feels like, so what was all this about? It's tragic that all this this multiracial city corrupted this otherwise very nice man,
Right.
and it's so
Right.
sad that it brought him to this point. And it's like that sucks. Fuck that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is a strange choice of last shot. It's like, really there? How many last shots did you try out for this movie?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
we do like to, after every film, kind of declare whether or not we would unwatch it for whatever reason, and share any final thoughts maybe that we didn't get to. The only reason I wouldn't unwatch this is because it is one of those crazy explosions in the movie lab that I kind of can't believe how bad it is. And I do think that maybe what it comes down to, certainly a lot of it is Joel Schumacher's fault with his whole approach tonally and how he gets the actors in different pitches throughout this movie. But maybe it's just as simple as the script being written by a guy who apparently only has one other feature credit that I could find, some forgotten, almost unseen like cop comedy. It's called Car 54. Where are you? No idea what it is.
Okay. That's a film adaptation of like a broad comedy TV show from like the 50s or early 60s maybe.
And so that is the social satirist behind the screenplay for this for this film.
All right.
And sometimes just the list of credits can kind of tell you of where kind of things went wrong or what the level is that the creative team is coming from. And maybe it's as simple as that. And this is just how it comes out the other end. It's very strange. But what about you, Seth? And then we'll let Jason have the last word.
I wouldn't unwatch it for the same reason. And also, but it is just so frustrating that it gets so close to something. I was really excited by the metaphorical aspect of this, having that kernel of like, oh, they're going there, and they're kind of getting real about it too, about these very real microaggressions that happen between, basically white men and everyone else around them that isn't like them, right? But it just totally drops it and loses it. It is interesting that it's in that conversation too, with like that would culminate in like Y2K movies like Fight Club too. It feels like it's maybe like Fight Club is maybe a little better version of what's going on here. I think there's still
that's a good comparison. Yeah,
maybe things that are a little half baked in Fight Club, but it still like gets a lot closer to actually rounding out its like going to dark places for the reason of like, I don't know, the getting of some kind of perspective or knowledge of it, where here it just seems to go there and kind of leaves afterwards. But I will say, I still really like Michael Douglas's performance here. Michael Douglas kind of looks like my shitty bigoted uncle. So it always really is believable to me when he's kind of a shitty bigot. So
we'll send your uncle this episode.
Yeah, I'm sure he's listening.
All right. So how about you, Jason? How much did you dislike or like this movie?
I mean, I think it's worth seeing. I think it certainly doesn't succeed at what it's trying to do, but I think it's worth watching for what it attempts. Some movies I just feel that way about. It's like, no, I think it's worth observing what it's trying to do and how it succeeds and how it fails. I think there are really, you can extrapolate a lot of interesting things about the state of mainstream movie making in the early 90s by the ways in which this tries to go for it and doesn't quite get there. Most of which we have discussed, but like, that I think especially how much of a Frankenstein the script feels like really speaks to that era of filmmaking. But I admire the ambition. I admire the audacity, particularly of the Michael Douglas performance. I wish it worked, but sometimes the prejudices that a filmmaker seems unaware of can be just as telling as the prejudices he's trying to address. And I think that's certainly the case here.
Well put. And that's actually a good transition here to our next movie, because After watching Falling Down, I was thinking, well, we could spend the whole episode on that. Like, how much more could there be to say about 8mm, which I was seeing for the first time, unlike Falling Down. But you also can tell a lot about the time that 8mm came out in, not just in the the real world, but also in the movie world, because I think you can tell right away this is so much coming from this lineage of gritty psychological thrillers from the mid 90s, which you could argue started with Silence of the Lambs, but I really think that Seven is the one that forged the framework in particular, besides the fact that they share a writer. But after that, we have all these movies like Kiss the Girls, the Denzel Washington films Fallen, and The Bone Collector, all came out between 7 and
Copycat. Which Copycat came out the same fall as 7, actually. So I always think of it as a copycat of 7 when it's actually impossible. But
more of a copycat of Silence of the Lambs, maybe.
Very much. Yeah. But of the same ilk. Yeah. The thing that I think also is super important to think about in terms of the context of 8mm is the fact that this was Schumacher's first film after Batman and Robin. Like, this was, which as we all know, but if you're a younger listener and you weren't around at that time, was sort of an immediate punchline. Like, immediately critically reviled. The viewing public hated it. It made, some money opening weekend before word of mouth got out, and then just sunk like a stone. And everyone blamed Joel Schumacher for the failure of Batman and Robin. So this was very much his attempt to shift gears, to do something entirely different, something that was sort of bold and provocative and that would make people forget about Batman and Robin. And the thing that's applicable to our particular discussion is I remember very clearly the trailer, the theatrical trailer for 8mm, saying from the director of Falling Down. Like, they were positioning this as the heir apparent to that in the filmography. No Batman movies were mentioned in the trailer for 8mm. And maybe it said "and A Time to Kill," which was pretty well regarded and had been a pretty big hit. So it was like, from the director of Falling Down, from the screenwriter of 7. And when you watch that trailer, the way that it's sort of cut and pitched, it's made to look much more like 7 than anything that Joel Schumacher had done to that point, including Falling Down.
And you could argue including 8mm. Like, I don't know how much this actually reaches a 7 height. I would say, like we said, that Falling Down feels like a script that maybe like started one way and then somebody else got their hands on it. I see his name here, the 7 guy, and I kind of wonder if like this is like if 7 didn't have like Fincher maybe going in there, or whatever it is that made 7 what it is. Does not necessarily happen here. We get a lot more cartoonish, wild flailings of like a crazy Hollywood thriller here.
I threw a lot of shade on the previous screenwriter, and I don't know, looking through Andrew Kevin Walker's other films outside of 7, he wrote Sleepy Hollow, the Tim Burton film, The Wolfman, the one with Benicio del Toro in it. He did, I guess, have some uncredited work on other Fincher films. He wrote The Killer recently, which I mean, a lot of people liked. I found it a little underwhelming, but it kind of makes me think that maybe 7 was the exception rather than the rule. And
I've kind of come to the same conclusion, and I don't dislike all of those movies you mentioned, but it exceedingly seems like this guy was just sort of an adequate adequate screenwriter who was lucky enough to sort of lock in with filmmakers who had really distinctive aesthetics and were able to maybe give a little more flavor to his scripts than was on the page.
Sure. And again, Joel Schumacher's fingerprints are all over this too. So it was probably a real meeting of the minds here as far as his broad kind of silly, over emphatic tone.
Yeah.
The whole, there is a sense, a touch of like social panic to this movie, just like there was with Falling Down. And I wonder if maybe
Big time.
He was a New York guy, or at least he was New York born, Joel Schumacher. And I wonder if these movies is like his vision of LA or Hollywood in this case.
Right.
And it's like this kind of out of touch cosmopolitan's version of the seedy underworld, where everything is so production designed with graffiti lovingly, put on every inch of every set, and the lovingly crafted leather gear that everybody is wearing. There's something, the Middle Eastern kind of sounding score, the music to show how exotic everything is.
Which it's
pretty
problem
funny
in itself. Just like the far off scary East, and the leather daddy scariness. It's all evil.
I mean, I will say that I saw this movie in the theater when it came out, and I was genuinely looking forward to it. Like, I found it promising. I did and still do love Seven. The premise, I think, is a good one. It definitely has shades of hardcore, which I think is a mostly great movie.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah,
it's
like Nine Inch Nails version of hardcore.
It very much is. Yeah. But I mean, it's very clear to me, at least, that Andrew Kevin Walker sat down, studied hardcore, because this one follows it kind of like beat for beat almost. But ultimately it's just so hilariously overwrought in its attempt to be sort of edgy and dark and gritty, but it turns into it really verges into Reefer Madness territory in terms of its portrayal and understanding of the world of adult entertainment, which I realize is seedy and sleazy, but I know enough about that industry to know that this is very much a almost puritanical outsider's view of that industry.
Yeah, and I mean, it's about him searching for the people behind a snuff film, and the way that this equates your kind of run-of-the-mill S&M bondage fetish porn with snuff films, like a slippery slope is
half a step removed from it. Yeah.
Talk about Rush
Real
Limbaugh.
rough stuff. Oh my god, in that way. And they go to this black market. In a crazy dungeon alleyway, it feels like it's in Star Wars Tatooine all of a sudden. You're just going through boxes and apparently, like you said, S&M videos. If you look over your shoulder, there's just a child pornography table.
There's
over
a section
there.
labeled kids where he just walks by
maybe
we'll ignore that crime happening over there.
Yes.
Oh my god. Yeah, we can all agree this movie's crazy. I had no idea how crazy this movie was, and I have a hard time. It gets the further it goes, you kind of have to stick with it. The further it goes, though, I have a hard time getting my brain to go backwards to the beginning of how we even got to the point where he's battling the crazy leather man in his mom's apartment
backyard
with the damn posters on the wall and stuff.
Yeah, and the blasting radio and other again, like you say, it all seems so incredibly production designed, and that I think it's an important thing to note. Sometimes positive, but often negative about Schumacher as a filmmaker is that he started in production design. He started as I think if I recall correctly, he started his career literally dressing windows in department stores, and then transitioned from that into being a set decorator and a production designer, and entered the industry through that road, which is not a frequently traveled one. Kudos to him for sort of, for parlaying that into a directorial career. But it's watching his movies is really a matter of once you know that, you can't unknow it. Like, it really does sort of bear down on you when you're looking at his aesthetics, that they are all so, that he is, even when he's the director, he seems to be coming at it like a production designer. And so many of the scenes in this movie just feel designed, as opposed to, like, when you're doing this kind of gritty underworld thing, it has to feel captured. It has to feel, almost semi-documentary realism. And the comparison to in this one to Taxi Driver is, I think, really informative, because that's a movie where it all feels grabbed. It all feels just sort of like captured on the fly, and nothing in this movie feels like it's done on the fly.
Yeah, and I found myself wishing that he had just gone all in on the camp with this and
Sure.
actually tried to have fun with it. Since he clearly
Sure.
can't do it the other way, he can't make this
Right.
to be gritty and edgy and disturbing.
Or
And
feel
so when
accurate
Peter
as to
Stormare
what the actual
shows
black
up as
market
this
is like,
villain who is so flamboyant, and he's
Oh my
literally
God.
wielding a crossbow for like half of
Right.
his appearances, and you can tell
Right.
he's making a meal of every line. He is so over the top. And I
Yep.
was at least finally kind of having dumb, if inadvertent, fun with the
Yes.
movie. So until
Yes.
he and Joaquin Phoenix, who also is, this is like back when he would ever have to take a role like this. It's so weird
Sure.
seeing him being in this
In
weird
support, yeah.
supporting role.
Oh, he's such
Yeah.
a cute little kinky punk guy.
It's that time for sure. And then when the two of them very unceremoniously exit the film, like rather abruptly, is really when any kind of dumb laugh at
Yeah.
fun goes
Yeah.
away.
The movie comes up on drugs at that point, and that is where I just have a blast with the last bit of this.
Yeah, I mean, how do we feel about Nicolas Cage in this role?
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is another weird thing about this era, where this is his post-Oscar action hero period, which
Right.
some of those movies he gets to have fun, where he's playing characters with names like Stanley Goodspeed or Memphis Reigns or Cameron Poe.
Right.
But then there's the other ones where for some reason they want him to be the blandest guy in the movie. Like City of Angels, The Family Man, Gone in 60 Seconds. Like, for some reason, the crazy guy, Nicolas Cage of all people, they thought was the everyman. And when he's in those kind of roles, I think it can sometimes be kind of deadly. And I think it is here too, because
timing
a lot
might
of it,
be a
there's
big
kind of
thing.
laughable moments here with his
Because
performance.
we like 99. It's hard for me to imagine post memeable Nicolas Cage world that we're in right now.
Yeah, sure.
But then it was a lot more. I don't know. I could imagine maybe it was easier to buy that he was just a leading man, and you're not immediately just like Nicolas Cage every time he's in the scene. And
no. I mean,
every time he does something normal, quote unquote.
No. He had won the Oscar in 95. This was not, or in 96 for a movie that came out in 95. A brilliant performance. Like his work in Leaving Las Vegas, I think is sort of shattering. So, this was still a period where he was considered a formidable actor, and then he goes on the action run, and I think people sort of respected that. It was like, okay, he did he's done all this serious work. He won his Oscar. He wants to cash some paychecks now. Good for him, because he was doing interesting things in those movies, even in the sort of the goofier action stuff. But I think a lot of the Nicolas Cage as meme stuff came about because of the sort of glut of straight to video stuff that he was doing once we got into like the late 2000s, early 2010s, and it's sort of been hard to think and consider him before that. I think he's really miscast in this one, because I think the bold, ambitious, sort of high-minded thing that Andrew Kevin Walker's script is trying to do, and that Schumacher's trying to put on screen, is this idea of the man who succumbs to the darkness. That you're right that he was doing this run of kind of everyman roles, and that they're trying to use that early on, when he's the sort of wide-eyed innocent, entering the seedy porn underworld. But this moment with Mr. Gandolfini, by the way, plug.
Yes.
Enter Gandolfini.
Where he has to decide if he's going to cross the line and kill this man. This, I'll bet you anything. I didn't look up a single interview, but I'll bet you anything that Schumacher, Cage, whatever, when they were junketing this movie, said that was the scene that made them want to make this movie, because it's this profound, examination of a man deciding if he's going to succumb to the darkness, if he's going to do this evil, heinous thing, et cetera, et cetera. And we can talk about that scene in a more granular sense, but generally I feel like, because we've seen Nicolas Cage play creeps and killers and weirdos, because we've seen Wild at Heart, Vampire's Kiss, the crazier stuff, it doesn't land when he succumbs to the darkness. We're sort of waiting for him to get there because it's Nicolas Cage, whereas I think, and obviously he wasn't a name above the title. He couldn't have opened it. But I think even if Joaquin Phoenix were playing that role, it would hit harder. You can come up with a whole list of other actors who, if we know them as an everyman, if we don't associate them with sort of craziness and darkness, that turn could hit in a way that it just doesn't when it's Nicolas Cage.
It's like just so funny when he's just doing normal stuff and just being a nice guy. Like, that's the thing about it, the lead up and everything. Just even him just like exiting a car and like nodding to someone. There's just something
he just can't look normal.
That's the thing. He actually,
which is what's good about him.
There was a run right before leaving Las Vegas where he was doing some sort of like light romantic comedy stuff and pulling it off. Like, these are movies that have been altogether memory hold, but something like Honeymoon in Vegas or It Could Happen to You, like, these are light romantic comedies, and he's the lead in them, and he's mostly credible. There are occasionally, though, moments in those where you see the weirdness kind of poking out, and it feels incongruent. Yeah, Moonstruck is, I think, a nice sort of mixture of the everyman romantic comedy thing and the darkness that exists right under the surface of that character. It's probably the best vehicle for sort of both things, at least among the early pictures.
Whatever he's doing, he usually does it in some kind of counterintuitive or unexpected way,
Correct.
And here, it's just the most like straightforward, grim thing. And I definitely agree that the way this approaches all those dramatic elements and his transformation is all so perfunctory that, every 15 minutes he gets a call from his wife at home to remind him of the stakes that are happening and what a family man he is.
She never leaves the house. She just has the baby all the time.
She probably filmed her entire appearance in this film alone in a room holding a baby and a phone. And not even getting to see the other actor.
Thankless. I mean, if you want to know if a role is thankless, if Catherine fucking Keener cannot do anything with it, that is a poorly written, thankless role. If even she is like, dudes, I got nothing here. I don't know. I'll take my paycheck now.
She should get it, an Oscar for achievements in thanklessness for this film.
Big time.
And then the rest of it is just a lot of kind of like a Law and Order episode. Lots of just interviews with random people sweeping and moving boxes while they talk about how they knew the missing girl. And it's
until you finally do reach the underworld, which is another part, which is probably something you could only, I don't know. It had like a short time where you could maybe believe that was how the underworld of porn worked or looked like and stuff.
Just enough pre-internet
or like edgelord content. And then literally like 4 or 5 years later, we got 4chan, and you can look up any kind of crazy guy puking on somebody that you want, and you don't have to go to like scary like I don't know, Blade Runner town to get it.
Yeah. And then the other thing that's sort of worth contextualizing, and sorry, going to do a little more plugging.
Yes.
This movie came out in February of 1999. So it hit theaters about a month into the first season of The Sopranos.
That's wild.
And he had shot it obviously before the show had started. He had, I believe, done it in sort of the pocket between the shooting of the pilot of The Sopranos and when they got picked up and got the series order. And I remember when he showed up in the movie being excited because I had been a James Gandolfini fan since True Romance. That's part of the sort of the origin story of the book, was that I was tracking this guy as a great character actor all through the 90s when he's popping up in, you know, Crimson Tide and Get Shorty and movies like that. And when he pops up in this, he's given so little to do. He's given a character that is so comically shallow, just the most sort of scuzzy villain with no dimension at all, that it really, he would have felt wasted any time this movie had come out. But the fact that it was coming out as we were all sort of under the initial grip of Sopranos fever makes it all the more overwhelming how egregiously underused he is in this role. If you've been watching him for just that last month on HBO playing this dark character with so much nuance, it really is sort of jarring to see him doing the kind of roles that he too often had to do before that, where he's just playing a sort of generic thug.
Yeah, especially in that endless last 30 minutes of this movie. He's just there to sneer and get the shit kicked out of him.
He has his little monologue, but it doesn't really give us too much. It's just all about how, like, yeah, whatever, we killed her. I don't know.
Girl like that disappears. Nobody gives a shit. You know, it's just like...
It's a great moment, though, when he licks the gun when he's tempting him to shoot him. He's like, go for it, man.
Yeah.
He's just so naughty because he's a pornographer, so he licks guns, you know.
Yeah. And that's the scene where that is, you know, the big scene where Nicolas Cage is supposed to make the decision that he's going to kill him, and kind of makes the whole rest of the movie this weird kind of unconvincing revenge story.
Is that when he calls
that's
the
when
girl
he leaves
mom?
the room and calls the mother.
Which is
the mother.
Honestly, part like almost just as fucked up as going ahead and killing this evil guy is like calling her and telling, like, tell me to do this, so that it's like almost like that it's your fault.
Tell me how much you loved her.
Like,
what the hell were they thinking?
And she's like having like a PTSD flashback, like, of course, having a terrible time getting this call. And like,
I have never I don't know that I've ever seen a movie moment that was so clearly and obviously a studio note. Like, that just screams someone who is afraid of this. The blowback to this movie was afraid of the darkness of this script and said, we have to give him one more moment of motivation. We really have to make it okay for him to do this. We
can blame the mom somehow. Or,
and it feels to me like a screenwriter who's just like, I don't know how the fuck you want me to do that. What do you want him to do? Call the mom? And they're like, yes, there you go. I mean, like, this is again, total conjecture, but like, it's that clumsy, it's that clodding, it's that obvious. Like, that feels like the progression of events to me. And if it's not, then it speaks volumes about what a bad scene it is, that it seems to me that it could have come together that way.
Absolutely. And this is one of those movies that can't come up with any other way to end than to have this big rain-drenched battle in a cemetery with a fist fight and a big speech. Just the way that this comes down to now he's finding the final guy from the video who actually killed the girl. Like, the least interesting and with a no personality person who they've decided is the big villain. All you know about him is he wears a leather mask.
He has a monologue about how he has no personality and no background, and he doesn't do it for any reason.
Yeah, worst final boss ever. That's, I mean, really and truly, like that. But that's the level that we're operating at by the end of this thing. Like it's stopped being a psychological thriller. It's stopped being, an exploration of a dark underworld. It just feels like a video game, and not a good one.
No, I wouldn't play this.
No,
the 8mm PS5 version.
No,
I would if there was more corn in the soundtrack. I feel like the problem is, like, not only is it kind of offensive, the quote unquote exotic music,
right?
Where is all the like new metal and stuff in this? I feel like there should be a bunch of like
I agree,
Fred Durst level stuff going on. Like that's
God,
how this feels.
It was 99. You're right. It 100% should have. Yeah,
they dropped the ball.
Yeah, I kept waiting for there to be some sort of big twist that, maybe something involving the old rich lady who set him on this, or that maybe the video actually was fake and the girl's going to turn up like this could have used some sort of big,
that seemed
stupid,
like
ridiculous
fruit.
Twist like that. But it really just keeps getting smaller and smaller and narrowing down.
Yeah, the girl's just dead. She's just dead. That's it.
Yeah.
And that the whole thing is just like all the villains are just, which could be an interesting angle in a way. They're just like, no, you thought there was something to this. There's not. It's just dark and it's sad. And but in the end, Marc, go that way, really.
Marc, that comment that it keeps getting smaller and smaller, that's right on the fucking money. That is what happens in this movie. And it's what's wrong with it in a big way.
Yeah, and so by the time they get to that last scene, and it is like they just ran out of characters, they're like, well, I guess we could just bring back that mom for something. And the fact that this movie ends with him getting a thank you card, and then
thank you for the movie,
and then his wife just knowingly smiling from the window. When what the fuck? He's just getting the mail. What is she smiling to him about?
She has this dopey smile, and oh my god,
and it fades to the credits like they actually
thank you on the card.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, if you couldn't have a more direct quotation that misunderstands the source. Like that screamed to me trying to recall the end of Taxi Driver. But like when we're hearing the parents' thank you note at the end of Taxi Driver, like it is not supposed to be a warm, heartwarming moment. Like it is not supposed to make us feel better about what happened. It's supposed to underscore the savagery of what has come before. And I just talk about completely missing the point of the thing that you're ripping off.
So and I'll make this my final thought so we can declare if we're going to unwatch this one or not. I guess I also, I wouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't unwatch the first like hour and a half because there is a inadvertent kind of laughing at it silliness to it. But it does end up being very bleak in a way that I don't know. Some people might have given it credit for at the time. To me, it ended up being bleak in an empty and exhausting way. By the end, where I just can't imagine people leaving the theater in 1999 after that, which I guess you would have had the experience with of just like, well, that was not a fun time at the movies, and I learned and it got nothing from this, and now I guess it's just over. Let's send it a thank you card. So I don't know. It's not as spectacularly miscalculated as Falling Down as far as I don't know, having the power to be like inadvertently offensive or something, but it's definitely a bad movie. What about you, Seth?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it again on these like giggly sort of aesthetic levels of a very 1999 bleak, gross thing. But again, even in those situations, there's still just like perplexing choices that kind of get in the way of some of that, even that enjoyment. But I don't know. I enjoy the oddity of it. I enjoy Nicolas Cage being a weirdo and sometimes not being a weirdo, and it's still being weirdo. And just like they got rid of Joaquin Phoenix and they didn't even give a shit. Like, I almost kind of liked that idiotic little character, and he just kind of gets crossbowed in a kinky cross crucifixion kind of way, and then they just keep moving with the movie like it never happened, and I think that's just cruel.
Yeah.
Wait, are you unwatching?
No,
I'm unwatching. I think it's mostly worthless. Like I like Gandolfini in it because it's a fine demonstration of how he'll always at least be interesting, even in an absolute nothing burger of a role. But I think Cage is miscast. I think Schumacher was the wrong director for it. I don't know if the script was any good, but I doubt it. It doesn't really have anything interesting to say. And if you're going to make a movie that's trying to be this bleak, you have to at least provide some form of demonstrable catharsis, which I think it fails to deliver. So I intensely disliked it in 1999, and my feelings have not changed.
All right. And final question. There's a line from this movie that I have been mulling over for days where Joaquin Phoenix is describing, I guess, the maker of the big porn and snuff movies in California. And he describes him as the Jim Jarmusch of S&M. What the hell does that? Does it mean that there's a lot of Tom Waits in it? Like what the fuck?
When you see him, you don't even get it then.
Lot of long takes in his work.
Sometimes they don't even
soundtracks.
have sex.
Yeah, he prefers black and white. Maybe I don't know what the Jim Jarmusch of S&M would look like.
I mean,
but
that character isn't Jim Jarmusch. I don't know. Yeah, maybe he's a little relaxed like Jim Jarmusch.
Maybe so.
I don't know.
Maybe so. Yeah, all of his S&M movies have Bill Murray in them. That's why he's the Jim Jarmusch of S&M movies.
Okay, I thought maybe someone could shed some light on that for me, but it's one of the many mysteries I'm happy to just appreciate. But anyways, thank you so much, Jason, for guiding us through this. The book, Gandolfini, Jim, Tony, and the Life of a Legend is available now on Amazon. I'm sure many other places. Is there any place you'd prefer them to get it from?
I would. If you go to mzs.press, that's Matt Zoller Seitz' online arts bookstore. So first of all, he has an incredible selection of great film books. You're supporting an independent bookseller, and many of the books that he sells, including Gandolfini, Jim, Tony, and the Life of a Legend, are signed by the author. So if you buy it through that particular website, it's going to the best possible recipient as opposed to an evil billionaire who supports Donald Trump. If not there, bookshop.org is also highly recommended. And I have to say, available in hardback, ebook, and also audiobook. This is the first time one of my books has been an audiobook. And if you've loathed the sound of my voice for the last 80 minutes, don't worry. I am not the narrator of the audiobook. We hired a professional by the name of Eduardo Ballerini, who has a beautiful melodic voice and is sort of a superstar of the audiobook narrator world. So you can hear him read the book if you would like.
Ooh, we should get him on the show next.
There you go. He's terrific.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear there wasn't some sort of weird AI like Gandolfini voice that they came up with.
Oh my God!
Oh God! No, thank
Tony
the Lord.
Soprano reading of Gandolfini bio.
I am a little curious now that you've done this, obviously, deep dive into, I assume, everything that he probably ever did. As far as his film roles outside of The Sopranos, is there one that you like the most, or you think that got him to shine the most?
I point everyone to Enough Said, which sadly was a posthumous release. It was the second to last movie he made before he died, and he never got a chance to see it or see it released. But it's a lovely, low-key, really charming, modest, independent romantic comedy that pairs him with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Nicole Holofcener is the director, who did, Friends with Money and Walking and Talking and Please Give, and recently reteamed with Julia Louis-Dreyfus for You Hurt My Feelings. And number one, it's the film that, if you only know him as Tony Soprano, it's the movie that will most amaze you with the show of his range, that he's playing a really just sort of down-to-earth single dad, divorcee, dating world type of thing. But also, everyone I talked to when that film came up, everyone who knew him said, oh, that was the closest to the real Jim. Like the guy he's playing in that, this sort of, bearded, lovable Birkenstock wearing kind of hippie type, like that was the closest to who James Gandolfini really was. So it's a lovely movie with a really remarkable performance that's sort of heartbreaking because you see the kind of directions he might have gone in as an actor had he not been taken from us too soon.
Well, what a nice positive note for us to end on with a recommendation like that.
Yay!
After this 90 minutes
after
in this seedy
double
darkness.
Feature. Yeah. Go watch a sunny Nicole Holofcener rom-com. There you go.
All right, I will.
Yep. Get a copy of Enough Said, get the book, and enjoy. Beautiful cover. And
thank you.
Jason, thank you again. Careful in any traffic jams on the way home after this.
Stay in your car.
Will do.
Unwatchables is produced by Tony Scarpitti, hosted by me, Marc Dottavio, and Seth Troyer, with artwork by Micah Kraus. You can find Seth and I on Letterboxd under Marc Dottavio and Sloth Troyer. You can also check us out at unwatchablespod.com for links to our Twitter and Instagram, or support us on Patreon for bonus content and to have a say in what we watch. Thanks for listening.